Hi there, welcome. I wanted to show you Tyrell N6 briefly, and this I believe is one of the best free synths available for beginners and pros. This synth is designed by Yuhi, and Yuhi are famous for their analog modeling synth Diva and their cinematic modular synth Zebra 2, which is most notably used by Hans Zimmer on the Nolan films, the Batman trilogy and Inception. And a fun fact, the name Tyrell comes from Blade Runner that was scored by Vangelis. So you get an idea of what this synth will sound like just from that. Now, what you were just listening to was a patch that I had quickly put together, and I believe it imitates a 303 quite well. And this is quite impressive, given that the design of the synth, and I quote, is based on a design similar to Roland's classic Juno 60. Okay, let's look at the top section up above, and we'll start on the far right. So what we have is a drift on and off. And what this is selectable oscillator drift, which mimics the imperfections in analog gear. So if I just play a simple chord, we'll just turn the chorus off, and on. Okay, Tyrell N6 has 4 voice modes found under the mode button. And to the right of that, we have our voices set from 1 to 8. So Tyrell actually has 8 voice polyphony. And how that works is when it's set to 1, we can play 8 notes. And however, when it's set to 8, we get 8 voices in 1 note at a time, so it essentially becomes monophonic. Having said that, we also have a monophonic mode. So it's back to 1. Legato. And duophonic. Let's put our drift back on. Our VCA can be set to gate, which helps free up our envelope number 1 for more modulation. Let's leave that on ADSL1. We have a output, which is our volume control, which can boost past 100. So at the moment it's set to 100, we can boost past that. Put that back. In the center here we have our preset browser. We can just click on it to enter a new preset. We can also press presets. Oops, I just pressed the wrong button then. I'll just go back. Presets. And there's a list of presets. Scroll through those and there's our save button if we want to tweak any of them. To the left of that we have a global transpose plus or minus 24 semitones, and to the left of that we have a detune button. Now this will either detune a patch and sense, so I'll put it back to it'll either detune and sense. But if we select more than 1 voice, let's go to 2, it will detune the voices against each other. So I've changed the synthesizer to the init patch because I wanted to go through the oscillators quickly with you. So we have 2 continuously variable oscillators. So what that means is, well, first I just play the init patch for you. And we're listening to both our oscillators. Our first one is set to a sawtooth and our second one is set to a square. So I'll just put it on the first one. This is our mixer, which is bringing the volume down. And here's our sawtooth. And these are continuously variable. So what that means is if we pull this down to the left, we get a sine wave. Bring it up, we get a triangle. Across to our saw, which we heard before, and our pulse. And we can also place these anywhere in between. So in between the square and this saw. Oscillator 2 consists of a saw and a pulse. So to the left it's a saw, to the right it's a pulse. To the right of that we have our Oscillator 2 tune. "24 semitones in total. We also have our Oscillator 2 fine tune, which will tune or detune in cents. And we can do a little old analog synth trick by putting our two oscillators on and detuning the second one in cents. We also have a sub oscillator, which is set to 1 octave below our first oscillator, and its waveform is a square wave. So put that on for you. To the right of our sub-oscillator, we have our noise. And this synthesizer has white noise, red noise to the right, and pink noise in the middle. Ring modulation. And our feedback, which will feed the input of the mixer, or the output of the mixer back into the input. So it's essentially an overdrive. Now, Oscillator 1 and 2 can also overdrive by themselves because Tyrell is designed to mimic an analog synth. So the mixer and analog synths would often overdrive, and this is done by pulling up the volume. As you can see, we're in the negative, and we begin to approach 0, and then we move into the positive. So as we move into the positive, we're now overdriving the synthesizer. So let's take a look at our filter. We have a self-oscillating filter that has multiple modes. So we have a low pass, high pass, and band pass. We have 3 different slopes, 12 dB, 24 dB, and 36. we have our resonance control and our mix spread. So the mix spread controls the balance between the low pass and the high pass. So all the way up here, we've now got a high pass. Down the bottom, we have a low pass. Now the filter is self-oscillating, and I'll show you just what that means. So we'll bring the volume down of our oscillators. Okay, bring the resonance up. Still nothing. But if we bring down our cutoff, and now we can play the filter. But you'll notice it's all the same note across the keyboard. So what we do is we turn our key follow on. Might just turn our output down a bit. And we can control the cutoff to change its tone. So that's quite a fun thing to do. What's essentially happening is that the feedback created by pushing the filter resonance has turned the filter into a sine wave. And there's some interesting things you can do with this. For example, we can change our envelope to more of a pad. This is our volume envelope. And we can introduce some modulation. So we'll put some noise in there. Or possibly some ring modulation. And we can even control some modulation sources from our matrix down here. So we'll drag and drop this onto the ring modulation, and we'll set it to the mod wheel and turn it on. Let's have a listen to this. I want to briefly look at how the mix spread in the filter works. So here's our init patch, one saw wave. We're on a low pass. So if I bring down the cutoff, now if I bring the mix spread up, excuse me, now it is a high pass filter. And I press down a key, you can't hear anything. If I bring the cutoff down, and anywhere in between. Now, the mix spread changes its function when it's a bandpass. So what will happen, actually on 12, mix spread does nothing. So we just have one bandpass. If we set it to 24, we get 2. Here's our first one. Here's our second one. We set it to 36, we get 3. This is our first one, and then there's 2 here. Which can make for some very interesting effects, such as I set this to about 100, that'll do, and this to about 70. We should get something like this. Very vowel-like it's saying, yeah. And we can control this over time by setting up our matrix. So we'll target our mix spread and we'll add it to our first envelope, ADSR1. And we'll get the mix spread to sweep using the ADSR1. We'll just turn this on. We'll add a bit of feedback. Maybe a little bit of ring mod. Second oscillator. Gotta be careful with the feedback. So here are some other patches that I've created using this idea. Too low. And of course, okay, let's take a quick look at the oscillator modulation section and our two LFOs. So I've set the patch to oscillator 2, which is this one here, and it is on a square wave and it sounds like this. And the reason I've done this is to show you how the pulse width works. So pulse width is set here to LFO 2. So as we slide this up, instant pulse width. Now we can change the modulation of the pulse width on LFO 2. At the moment it's set to triangle. We can set it to saw up, square high low, change the speed, it's syncable, random, etc. The vibrato, as you bring it up you won't hear anything. So vibrato is hardwired or softwired to LFO1, and we must turn the depth to the left. It's set to the right automatically by the designers of this synth. So as you turn it to the left, we introduce vibrato. Now just a quick look at our LFO again. A good way to demonstrate this is on the tuning. So we'll go to Oscillator Mod. This is going to affect the tuning. So we'll select LFO 2. That's our square high low. What about our saw down? Or random. And while we're here, another cool thing to do with our tuning is to put it on our envelope. So we'll go to ADSR1, put it all the way up, and we'll put the decay all the way up and the sustain down and the attack down. You can make that as long as you want. And there's our 70s disco sounds. Okay, let's take a look at our Oscillator Sync, which is this sound. Okay, so how did I create that? First, let's init the patch, and we'll go across to Oscillator Mod, and we have our sync button. So we turn this all the way to the right, and we get a hard sync. So what that has done is slaved Oscillator 1 to Oscillator 2. And if we play it, nothing. However, because this is designed like an old analog synthesizer, we hard sync our two oscillators and we take the tuning of our second oscillator. And there's our sync sound. So, how do we get that? We turn it up, but we've lost the movement of this knob. So we need to automate that. So we'll select our tuning, put it on, put it onto ADSR 1 or 2, up to you. I'll put ADSR 1, and this will move this for us. Cool, huh? Now let's try another few things. So we've got our movement. What happens if we turn down Oscillator 1? And remember this, we can push these into overdrive. Add our sub oscillator. And feedback. Let's take a look at our filter. Put it on high pass. And that's Oscillator Sync. Finally, let's take a look at the remainder of our modulation. So we have two envelopes with fall and rise. We have our matrix and we have our chorus. So our matrix is a drag and drop. We select the target and then we select our modulators, and we have two. We also have Oscillator FM, Oscillator 2 pulse width modulation, and filter FM, and we can modulate via something if we want to control it, say by the mod wheel. And there's our depth. So just quickly with that. And finally our chorus. Let's go put it on a Juno style preset. Now this chorus is designed after the Juno itself, so we'll play without it and with it. Dramatic is just more detuned, and ensemble is designed after the famous string machines. And there you have it. This is a quick look at Tyrell N6. I've used a lot of these sounds in the track, and I will play that for you next. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much.